Hi, this is Robert Cornicelli, National President for Veterans for America First. And with me today, and I start most of these interviews and endorsements off the same way because it really is an honor when you're speaking to people who, whether they are veterans and they're serving in Congress or they're in Congress and they're serving for veterans and for all Americans. And Congressman Andy Biggs, it is truly an honor it's an honor for us to endorse you. You are one of the people who work the hardest in that house. And without people like you, I think the younger people who are coming up in the house would have no direction. So welcome.
Robert, thank you. It's my honor to be with you, and you guys are the ones that are the heroes. You went out and put everything on the line. Thank you, and it's our obligation, I believe, to respect that, respect what you did, and make sure that when you come back, while you're out there serving, wherever you're serving, and you know that we're behind you. And also when you come back, that you know that we haven't forgotten you and our gratitude remains full.
We is a strong word because 535 members in the House and Senate, right? 435 and 100, yeah, 535. I think that we is a little smaller group with you leading it because a lot of them do forget veterans, and whether it's intentional or not, we always have to remind people in office that veterans are still suffering. And I'll give you a brief example. So you have your degree in Asian studies and you got your JD as well, right? I went in the
Yes.
service in 1986 and they had the Montgomery GI Bill. I went back in the service in 2004 and they had the post 9/11 GI Bill. But from 1980, 81, when they created the Montgomery GI Bill, the government, our leaders realized veterans need, if you're going to put that much time into your country, when you get out, you're going to need not a hand up, but access to education. So you're on par with those who didn't spend 4 years in the service. Now you're 4 years ahead of your peers. But it's 2026, and we still only consider a 4 year degree something for veterans as a transition back into our communities. There's just so many things I think we need to reevaluate when it
Yeah.
comes to veterans, because whether it's intentional or not, they are left behind and they don't have access. I did 21 years. When I come out after doing 21 years, well, I was an officer, had an education, but let's say I did 10 years as an enlisted. When I come out, I'm 10 years older than all my peers who have master's degrees.
Yeah.
We
That's
have to start thinking in terms of what we're going to do to keep veterans on par with their classmates or people their age.
Yeah, I mean that's not, and I'm going to make an analogy here, and it could go off the rails, Robert. So don't let it go off the rails. But
Nah.
a lot of my colleagues are more concerned, and I am concerned about these people too, but they're concerned about um, people who are convicted of crimes coming out of prison and how they're going to be reintegrated into our society. Now, I think that's important because they are going to be, most prisoners are going to sooner or later get out and they get reintegrate. But guess what else? Most members of the military, they're going to come out, and we have to make sure that they have the opportunities that they have sacrificed, not because they made a bad decision like a criminal would, but because they made a great self-sacrificing decision on behalf of the country. And we tend to forget that. We like, this is enough. This is enough here. This is enough there. And then there's some people who don't even think about it at all. So, Robert, I think it's really critical that we try to resolve this. And there might be some, we might need to do some outside the box thinking at some point to make sure that if you join the military and you serve us, that you're not left behind when you come out, and you're trying to readjust, because I think that a lot of times is where the problems come in for the military, that they come back and there's just not something there that they can get into.
Yeah, and it's also very difficult for veterans who are disabled.
Yeah.
I have a great, I'm 100% service connected disabled. I have an amazing support structure with my wife and my 11-year-old son and my 15-year-old daughter and all my neighbors and my family. But it's the ones that don't have that. And, for example, I'm sure you know what TRICARE for Life is.
Yes.
That says TRICARE for life. It doesn't say TRICARE till you're 65. It says TRICARE for life. But then veterans, 100% service connected disabled veterans or retirees, they transfer to Medicare and now they have premiums. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same pool of money. It would be so much easier, especially for those veterans suffering from PTSD, to just maintain your TRICARE for life. You just have that same pool of money, but then they don't have to say, what card do I have to use? What insurance do I have that number? What do I do? Do I have a secondary? These small little streamlining things, um, they're just helpful. They don't seem like a big deal, but I
Yeah.
worry, and most of us in Veterans for America First worry about removing as many obstacles as we can from especially veterans who are suffering from PTSD, because the smallest little thing can spark their stress
Right.
disorder. And then sometimes they say, I just, this isn't the mission I signed up for. I signed up to fight for my country, and now I'm fighting over benefits. Um, But the one thing I know is great about you is you are open to hearing. You can't always do it, but you are open to listening to the concerns of veterans, disabled veterans, veterans with PTSD, and that's what makes you special. And I said earlier, when we were talking before I started recording, you are one of the guys that people like me in my community look up to. You're one of the guys who we know that the younger members of Congress coming in have someone to look to, like a father, like an uncle, like a mentor, and that means a lot to our veteran community.
Well, thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. Yeah, we do. We get a lot of young people who are coming up, and I've tried to mentor some of them because Congress is a different animal in and of itself, Robert, as you know, and a lot of these fellas and ladies that come in, they don't. I mean, they may have done something else, but they didn't expect Congress to be quite what it is, and it's brutal. And but I wanted to just talk to your issue specifically about PTSD and TBI, which I've tried to work on for veterans for years to try to get some specialized benefits. There are places where, for instance, if you're in the IDF, when you come out, most people who leave the IDF in Israel, they're going to get hyperbaric oxygen treatment because almost everybody has at least some small TBI. They have some kind of traumatic brain injury if you've been in the military. So, because that's just the nature of the beast. And there's a lot of folks that have PTSD. What they have found is HBOT therapy actually provides a lot of relief and eases the anxiety and provides some recovery in many cases, if not most cases. And so I've been trying to get that as part of the formal um, authorized treatment for veterans. And I just have not been real successful in getting that as broad because I think it needs to be broad, okay? And there are places that they will do that, but they won't do that everywhere. And it just drives me crazy because I think it's a small example of a failure to appreciate what we could do for our veterans coming back. Because I just don't think it's that big of a deal to authorize HBOT therapy, especially for PTSD or TBI, which there is clinical um, evidence that that works. And so it's really problematic. And a lot of my young colleagues coming in, I have to reteach them all the time about various things, such as HBOT therapy or other issues that we have faced over the years, trying to get veterans their benefits and take care of them and be fair to them.
No, we Veterans for America First. Our goal isn't just to elect veterans into office. It's also to support those who support veterans and first responders, such as yourself. But what we also do is we write legislation and we reach out to thousands upon thousands of veterans and say, what are your needs? And you brought up hyperbaric therapy. I think it was in Trump's first term. I don't know if it was executive order, if it was a bill, I forget right now, but it was the right to try.
Yeah, that was my bill.
That was your bill.
Yeah, it
Now,
was my bill. Yeah. Um, and we got it through. And Robert, the reason that's so important is because um, it makes a bigger panoply of medications available, especially for those who have a mortal illness. And that's, yeah, that's right. And so, and right now I'm working on Right to Try 2.0, Robert.
well, I'd love to work with you on that. And I was going to lead into part of our Veterans First Act of 2026 is, there's all these ageless offices opening up around the world, and they're doing stem cell, they're doing PRP, they're doing HGH. I loved Kobe Bryant as an athlete. He was just so calm and cool, and he never played the political game. And he just played basketball, but he used to fly to Germany to get HGH shots in his knees, or it was what platelet PRP shots in his knees, or
Yeah.
HGH shots, or stem cell. And these are things like the hyperbaric chamber you were mentioning about that. If they have the slightest chance to help veterans suffering from carrying rucksacks for 10 years, 50 miles, I mean, or even things about losing weight. I've had 15 surgeries. It's very hard for me to lose weight because I'm always in pain, but I manage. There's some who may not be able to manage. They don't have that support structure. We should be doing everything possible. Say, if you need to get 30 pounds off so you can get back to walking at least a
Yeah.
couple of miles, we have to do that. And I did forget, I think it was Rudy Giuliani was telling me about this years ago about who authored the right to try. And I want to thank you for that because you're saving thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. You're saving their lives with that bill. Maybe we can kind of expand it into focusing on veterans and what new technologies and medicines are out there to help them get back to living a normal life. You come out as an infantry, anyone in infantry or combat arms, you're going to be suffering. It's going to be like you were a 305-pound lineman since the day you were born. Linemen in football, when they're done with their careers, they're practically handicapped. But veterans, they didn't make $10 million a year.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
something we should look at.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. I actually wrote it down, Robert, is trying to find a right to try and get the Veterans Administration to work with right to try. So when I did right to try, we got it done in Arizona in the state legislature before I ever went to Congress. And then my predecessor had run it, and I ran the bill. And in the end, we used the Senate bill, Ron Johnson, and that's the bill that came through. So, but I worked on that bill nonstop, and now we're looking at right to try two, but maybe I like the idea of trying to find some niche where the Veterans Administration itself employs right to try in some of these modalities and medications. And so I think that's really good. But my experience, so I actually had to embarrass the Secretary of Veterans Affairs my first year in Congress because I had a veteran who was about to become a double amputee, and the therapy necessary was going to be HBOT therapy. And we kept reaching out, and she was appealing, and we were trying to support her appeal. And then in the end, I had him in a small group of members of Congress and had to put him on the spot. It wasn't until then that they were willing to let this lady have HBOT therapy because they viewed HBOT therapy as being experimental in nature, in spite of the fact that we were providing them with research and studies showing that impactful it is, and it's causative in making repairs in certain injuries. That's what we need to do, in my opinion, is the VA is too sclerotic, too locked in sometimes, very difficult to get them to move on things like a right to try initiative, like some of these modalities and medications that I think would be particularly impactful for for veterans who are in distress or dealing with just the issues to body and mind that came from fighting for our freedoms.
That's great to hear. I mean, that would save lives, and that's what I think is the job of our Senate and our House is to save the lives of our veterans because they now when they talk about 22 a day, I don't like the term, but it's the only term I really know. That's successful suicides. That doesn't count those who try, those who are thinking about it. Um, we really need to do a little bit more. And you brought up the VA. Did you? They have a policy now that if you're not permanent disabled, and let's just say you have PTSD and you're taking your medication, they can reduce your percentage if you're following your medical program and you're taking your medications, which makes absolutely no sense because you're going to somebody with PTSD who needs to be on some sort of medication say, you reduce my percentage, I get less money. I'm not taking it then. I'm going to stay in miserable shape. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't, I couldn't even believe they came up with a policy that says if your program's working, we're going to reduce your percentage. But you're right.
Well,
It's a huge organization, and I don't think like most organizations, people don't talk and they don't communicate and they don't see how bad this will affect veterans.
yeah, I would say two things to that. Number one, please give me a copy of that policy, Robert, so I can talk to, I will talk to the Veterans Secretary, who I served in Congress with, and just bring that to them. But back to the policy itself. Every person responds to incentives and trade-offs. And if you are telling someone, um, we're going to reduce your benefits because you are taking your medication and therapy, um, what you're effectively doing is you're saying we're going to disincentivize you to take your medication and therapy. And instead, we're going to that person then will respond, the veteran will then say, I'm going to make a trade-off. They don't think about it in the terms I'm describing, but this is what it is. I'm going to make the trade-off. I need the money too badly to get my treatment and therapy, right? And that's really the disincentive that, believe it or not, I've seen in the veterans uh, milieu. I mean, it's a problem. It is a problem where some people just like they give up on the medication or whatever because they need the money coming in from the disability rating. And this is a problem for us. And so that's why if you can give me a copy of that, and I will reach out to the secretary and his staff and say, look, let's fix this where we can.
Sir, I'm going to send you that policy as soon as we hang up. I'll also send you our bill so you can look through it and see if there's any things that you feel you can support. But again, you're busy. It's selection season. I don't want to hold you up. We are going to push out this interview and this endorsement as far as we can. America needs you, and more importantly to me, veterans need you in that seat fighting for us. It's scary sometimes, even for men to have to admit that. It is scary sometimes when you're going through all these procedures and these surgeries. Will I be able to recover? Will I be able to take care of my family? And knowing that you're sitting there eases some of the fear for us. And I mean that. And it's truly an honor to be speaking with you. And we're going to support you any way we can. You have our endorsement. You always will.
Robert, thanks you. Thank you. Again, thank you for what you and then everybody that's part of your organization has done for this country. In some extent, I've often felt like a free rider, but thank you. And we want to make sure that we do all we can to protect you guys, get the benefits you need. And I've tried to do that when I was in the state legislature, as a member of of Congress, and now hopefully as governor of Arizona. We want the veterans to know. I want Arizona to be the friendliest veteran state there is in the country, but I appreciate all you're doing and thank you for your support.
Arizona's lucky to have you, and when you win that seat and you're the governor, those thousands and thousands of veterans are going to be happy because that seat not only fights for veterans within that seat, you have a lot of sway over people working in the federal government, and that's a platform you can use to do what you're doing in Arizona for veterans all over the country, sir. So
Thank
thank you
you.
once again, and we stand behind you 100%.
Thanks, Robert. Take care.
Take care, you too.
God bless you, Robert.